Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for a tour of Axiom CMS. We're going to wait just a couple seconds for people to get logged in, and then we'll begin. So we appreciate your patience. All right. Welcome again, everyone, to a tour of Axiom CMS with Axiom Cemetery Management. We have Joel Wright joining us today, and I'm Missy. I'm the manager of events and programs at JMT Consulting and Axiom. I want to go through a couple of housekeeping tips with you, and then I'll turn it over to Joel. First of all, this is being recorded. We will send you a copy of the recording and the slides after the webinar is completed. And if you have any questions at all during the process, you can submit them in the Q&A box on your control panel. We will answer those at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joel. Thank you.
Thanks, Missy. And thank you, everybody, for joining. I see a couple of familiar names here, so appreciate you taking 30 minutes out of your day to see a quick flyby of Axiom Cemetery Management Solution. Hope everybody had a great holiday last week. I know that I did. Hopefully you're able to spend it with your close family members and enjoy a good turkey and a terrible Cowboys game. I may have cried during that, just so you all know. It was pretty sad to see the Washington football team desecrate us like that. But in 2020 fashion, that's the way it goes. For those of you in DC, you're probably pretty excited about it. If this is your first time joining in on an Axiom presentation, I typically kick these off just with a little bit about who we are before digging into the details. So my computer's working. Just to share a little bit about it, if you're ever communicating with Axiom, likely you're going to hear from a JMT Consulting email address. So just to kind of explain that. Oh, do I see something popped up? Is that a chat, Missy?
Hang on. Let me see if I can resend that person the link, and you can keep going.
Oh, okay. Got it. Great. Well, so just to share a little bit about JMT Consulting, we've been around for 30 years providing implementation services for nonprofit organizations across the United States. We were founded by Jackie M. Tiso, hence the name JMT. It's her initials, obviously. We've worked with approximately 2,000 nonprofits over our 30 years in business, and our primary mission has always been to recommend the most up-to-date modern technology to make sure that nonprofits are able to achieve their missions as effectively as possible. A year ago, Jackie had came across Axiom Cemetery Management Solutions, met the owners, John and Ann Fields, and kicked off right away with just a great discussion. John and Ann had created Axiom 20 years ago as a cemetery management solution technology company. And their primary vision for the system is to make sure that it's a legacy company that will continue on to ensure that cemeteries have the most up-to-date technology as well. So through that relationship, JMT had acquired Axiom as of January of 2020, which we're very excited about. Axiom was originally founded in Melbourne, Australia, and JMT Consulting, being a US-based company, has now extended to being a global organization, which we're very proud about and excited. But whenever we went through that acquisition process, there's a lot of diligence that went into place since we've been really reviewing systems from the beginning. And we made sure to do the same with Axiom, and we found that the technology is phenomenal. The individuals that make up the Axiom team were just great, had an amazing culture that really fit in line with JMT's culture and our mission. So truly it's to make cemeteries more effective and allow for you to conduct your business for clients that are, generally going through some of the toughest times of their life or making pretty serious decisions. So technology, especially today, plays just such an integral role. I mean, if you think about everything that's happened with COVID and having to work remotely, all of those things have just really heightened the need for a great technology solution. And so we're excited at JMT to be able to deliver this into a new market, into the cemetery and funeral home vertical. And just going back to Axiom's technology again, it was award-winning based on its innovation, the way they've been able to grow the organization, and just the user friendliness of the system itself. So it was kind of a no-brainer from the JMT side of this makes total sense to go on ahead and acquire this system and continue to grow it, make sure that it is that legacy company that John and Ann had wanted to make sure to keep it as. So whenever we're engaging with any cemetery, some of the things that we find as common issues that we come across are these things here. So probably the bottom one leads to most of it, the reliance on paper record keeping. If you've joined in on other webinars, I've talked about this before. It's not the cemetery's fault that you rely on paper records because, 30 years ago, digitization of this sort of thing just didn't really exist, or it wasn't that prominent. And then if you think about that and the lifetime of the cemetery itself, I mean, it's really just a small percentage of the time that the cemetery's actually been around. So it's just one of those things that you're relying on your old processes that have been handed down, but ultimately it leads to, bigger problems, whether it's, it's Mother Nature that comes in and destroys the paper records, or if it's just weathering on the paper documents themselves. Making sure that those are pristine enough to read and it's able to go through, the day in, day out through time is really difficult. So trying to solve for that and essentially giving cemeteries a better disaster recovery plan, making sure that if something was bad to happen, that you at least had backup of that data to make sure that all your records are straight is a huge goal of ours. Other things that come in play is just the confidence of the burial records, understanding whether or not John Doe is actually buried where he's at, or maybe there's, two people buried there. And again, it just kind of goes back to, cemeteries being around for hundreds of years. And so going through a system conversion or, adding a new system or, going completely from manual to a system, there's usually some type of auditing process that goes through in that implementation conversion, which at the end of the day, whenever you go live, let's say with Axiom, you're confident that all these things are going to be taken care of and really put your cemetery in a good position for, the next, big wave of things that could happen. So these are the main things that we see. And just to give you a visual, and I'm not sure if you could see my photo here or not, so let me minimize that. This is just a hub and spoke look at everything that encompasses Axiom CMS. So there's a CRM, which is a true CRM system, allows for you to do marketing and sales from a marketing perspective. This may be new to cemetery individuals. I know that a lot of times it's not really a heavy sales type of organization, basically because it's hard to be, right? I mean, if somebody comes to your cemetery and wants to buy a plot, they'll buy a plot, but it's hard to get that commitment until they're absolutely ready. So it's not really like the used car sales approach, where you're trying to get them to sign on the dotted line right there. But there are ways to, get your brand out just like any other industry would of, marketing campaigns. Maybe you have events going on at your cemetery. Potentially it's a cross sell to existing clients of, you're adding a new perpetual care contract. Let's go on and create an email list and start sending those out. There are innovative ways to make sure that you keep that revenue up, and having a true CRM system just kind of puts you in a good position to do that. Mapping, so just being able to have a digital map of your cemetery is a great way. A lot of prospects that I talk to are using paper maps to go out and locate a site or to reserve a site, and we just know the problems with paper. There's just it's hard to keep track of, it's hard to keep updated, or which, there's version controls. So maybe once a family service manager reserved a plot, and then one happens to walk by the same plot immediately after and reserve the same plot, and come to find out you reserved a plot that may already be sold. All these things kind of lead to an issue with the paper map. So having a digital map, which Axiom CMS has, just helps to alleviate that. Visitor services, so any visitors that come to your cemetery and are looking to potentially find a service or find a loved one, having that front end facing either kiosk or web-based tool that they could easily find that information. And of course, just cemetery operations, so any sort of workflows that you have that your grounds crew or your office crew have to manage, any sort of documentation that you need to collect on any owners or deceased, having that all digitized out, doing away with the paper side and mail merged into an email format that you could then share that with those owners. It's just a great tool. So without further ado, I'll send this PowerPoint to you, but just some more in-depth look as to each one of those things that we just talked about on the last slide. So mail merges from operations, asset management, being able to track your inventory, from accounting, having your price book available through the contract. So if you were to create an order, have that price book automatically populate for the family service rep. Commissions, any commissions that you pay out. Information, again, leads, opportunities, being able to manage that life cycle of a new client, creating a lead, moving them to an opportunity and being able to see that conversion rate just to see how effective your marketing campaigns are. Any services that you may conduct on your cemetery. Obviously, this is all customizable depending on what your cemetery does provide. Service location, the information associated with the services, the location, owners, the deceased, all the documentation that's associated with it, and then work orders, which is company-wide. So it's a global work order system that could be used by your grounds crew, whether or not they're watering a specific section, if they're going to be, doing maintenance on irrigation lines, or opening up a new site. All of those work orders are global within your company. So the good thing is that you have all that history that's associated with the location or owner that you could always search back on and pull up. So if you have a client calling in and they're curious about, my loved one here buried on this location, you guys were supposed to put a new urn there, and last I heard you didn't do it. You could go back and look at that work order history and say, yep, we actually did. Here's a before and after picture or whatever. You could go ahead and send that out and mitigate, that complaint, because people don't have anything better to do than complain nowadays. Pick up the phone and call and complain. So with that, we'll go on ahead and go into a product tour. Unless, Missy, have there been any questions that have come in? I believe you were helping somebody out to get logged in.
Yes, and I see that they logged in, so you are good to continue.
Okay, great. All right, let me move out of here and pop up in here. Okay. So this is a home dashboard. So as soon as you log in, these dashboards are customized depending on your role within the organization. So here I have a CEO manager dashboard. Again, these are all customized, and there's security rights for what dashboards specific individuals could see. So not everybody would see your own specific dashboard. And you can kind of see that if you just look at the front end side of this. You have My CRM, you have Team CRM, reports, marketing. Let me move this window up again. It's pretty easy to understand, where we need to go within the system. Any sort of recent items that you may have come across, you could easily pull that up right here. If you have favorites, you could have favorites assigned. There's also just little notifications that come up, or if I was to click on that, it would take me directly to this service. So I could go on ahead and, go through the process of updating that service information, or potentially, assigning it to a new user, whatever your custom workflow is there. On the right here, we have all just an easy little button to add any sort of new components within the system. So annual care, new lead, location, new memorial, et cetera, et cetera. So Just pretty user-friendly from the front end side of it, being able to navigate within the system. On the dashboard, if I was to click on this, it's actually going to pull up the information. Well, it says it's too big for my screen. So let me go to another dashboard and show that. So this is a cemetery executives of property, unit sales by month, unit sales by year, that sort of thing. So if I was to pull this up, it's going to go on ahead and just give me a bigger image of that, and it'll show me the digits that actually make up this graph. But we're not all financial people, right? And we want to see things in a visual format, just easier to ingest. And so that's what these dashboards really do. And you can move things around and, basically make it fit your eye as much as you want. If you wanted to create a new one, let's say you just wanted to customize one, you could create a copy of a dashboard. Oh, I wonder if I'm logged in as somebody else. Hold on one second. Let's go back here. Let's try this one. Maybe I didn't have the rights for the executive. I'm still not an executive here. Need to work on that. So you just create a copy of the dashboard, and you could customize it from there. You could also create a new dashboard from here, but I just find this a little bit easier. If you wanted to add something new, so we call them gadgets. Some other technology companies call them tiles. You could create something like, maybe I want to see what's on JMT's website. And I'm a terrible typer, so hopefully this works. Oh. So I'll cross our fingers. Man, I'm good. Got it. So you could have, whatever website you might find interesting up here as well. So just to show, it's all live. So one of the great things about having all-encompassing database is that as you come in and you update records, it's all in real time. So opportunities by sales rep, let's say Marty here actually added a new opportunity, and you can see that pipeline, it would be impacted here. So as soon as I would refresh the page, I'd be able to see that. Just checking, there's no questions. Okay. So there is an integration with Outlook. So if I was to go to my CRM and let's just say my calendar, I'd be able to see, what meetings I have going on for the week right here. So it's just a great way to see, okay, what's going on this week. And again, it just kind of drives the user to coming to the system. Potentially I work on a team. I could see what's going on within my team calendar as well. So if I'm on the grounds crew, or if I'm in family services, or work on memorials, whatever it may be, I could see exactly what's happening. And you don't see any meetings here just simply because I didn't add any, but just a great way to keep up to date with everything that's going on. And then one of the good things about Axiom, we feel like, is that a lot of the activity, or at least the way we want to train people to be, is to drive the experience basically through the map. So rather than having to come, and create a new order here and then identify the location or type in the location type, which you certainly can, what we like to do is basically drive it from this digital map here. So it's all integrated. So if I'm a sales rep and I'm with a family and we're going to be looking, let's say in section 21, and I just want to show it, we mapped the buildings, we mapped essentially everything on your cemetery. One thing that I will mention is that from a work order perspective, the way the system is built is based on location. And so you have lot location, you also have, let's say like a tree location. And so here you could see the lots. And then as we dig a little bit deeper, you see the actual locations that are associated with it. So, okay, I'll go here. So if I was to say, click on this, I can see this is a tree, right? So we could have a tree and we could have work orders tied to that tree or any sort of updates that are tied to it. So it's just something that's unique. So whenever we talk about just the work order management and making sure that it encompasses all of your cemetery, again, this is a big piece of it, right? So, oh, went a little bit faster there. Great. So here, if I come to the left-hand side, right now I'm looking at Gate of Heaven's map. If you have multiple cemeteries, you could actually have layers built down into this. So I'm just going to hide that. And so if we look here, we could see that each one of these locations are color-coded based on what it is. So if I was to look over here, I actually have the name for what each one of these are set up as currently. So you can see deep red is interred, pink is pre-sold. So we know, kind of going back to what we were talking about before, we know that we have an accurate count on the inventory and what everything is at. So see, we have a yellow over here, which is a reserved spot. So if I was to click over here, and let's say I just wanted to reserve a location, I could reserve this grave right here. And all you need is first name, last name, phone number. This reservation could be custom based on how long it's held as a reservation. I think generally we find like 60 days, I believe, is the standard, but we could create whatever. But it kind of goes back to maybe reserving a plot that's already sold is done away with this, since it is truly a real-time system. So some of you may be asking, okay, well, how does this work if my field managers, my cemetery is 100 acres? Like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to deploy this technology? This is something that you could have on an iPad. So if you were to have a family service member, go with a family and look at some locations, this is as long as you have, Wi-Fi throughout your cemetery, or if your iPads have mobile network, then you could actually have this available for them in the field. If I wanted to say add a contract with that site, again, we're driving it all from the map. So we're adding a new contract directly on that. You could search for clients. So let's say the client's already in there, person, all of this. These are just typical fields that we see as your input templates for coming and being a part of the client. So there's the pricing list, so having your price book already built within the system. So whenever you are adding a contract based on that location, you know exactly how much it is. And you go through, you add your service, you could add your work order, new memorial, all of that. And so if I was to go through and completing this, I would essentially be creating a new contract with a pricing agreement. I could pull up a quote, mail merge it, send it out, and have the client have that available for them, in which they could sign, and you could collect first payment, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this, again, is just putting your paper processes into this system and digitizing it. So it's a very slick process. And again, the workflow of how you add these new contacts are actually customized based on how you manage it within your current cemetery operations. Another great tool about this system is just the reporting. So if I was to come here, potentially I have some favorite reports, which I haven't done, but there's a lot of different reports that you could create within the system, and it is a pretty easy reporting tool by itself. The reporting within this database falls back on, how much you're actually using it. So the power of your data is based on your utilization of the system. So if you're having your sales team, your marketing team utilize it correctly, you're being able to track those engagements whenever a new visitor comes to your cemetery and have that first experience, and you're able to track that and create it. Then, the next time they come back, you're able to say, oh, it looks like you were here last year. How's your husband doing, or whatever it may be. Being able to track that from the beginning to the end ultimately leaves you with the best type of reporting. So if we were just to look here and see what type So we could see, deeds, memorials, services, administrative reports, sales. And again, this is all something that can, let's go to the lead report here. So lead decision time frame, if you want to be able to track, from the first engagement to whenever they make a decision, what does that look like? You could rate leads. So there's a lot of different intuitive things that play into this system. And I'm not sure if any of you joined my last webinar that was talking about what to expect during a new software migration. Starting out, once you go live, what we want you to be able to do is run basic things, be able to add a service, create some workflows. And as time goes on, we're going to help train you up to make this system much more intuitive and be able to do things much more custom within your cemetery. So the true capacity of what this system could take on is a lot. So what we want to start you out with is just the basics and then really train you up to do a lot more. So I look at the time, I see we have only 3 minutes left. Just wanted to touch on, the main things here, the ability to have your entire cemetery logged into the same system, the digital mapping, the dashboards, the transparency within, what's happening within your organization. All of those are really what I wanted to show with you today. I saw there's a couple of questions that came through. Missy, are you able to see those?
Yes. So somebody asked, are field headings customizable?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm sure each of you, so if we were to going back to adding the order and we have client person, depending on, what you may use in your cemetery, those things are certainly customizable, as well as all the different fields you saw there. Again, we want to try and mimic at least more or less what you're doing today, the information that you're collecting. So there was a lot of information on that screen, but we could add things and do away with it as needed. So absolutely. Any other questions, Missy?
Oh, hold on. Sorry, I was having trouble with my mute button. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you.
Okay. No questions just yet, but we'll leave it open for a second. If you do have a question, you can submit it in the Q&A box. Oh, here comes one. Can you have more than one cemetery?
Yes, definitely. So I tried to show that here, but as you can see here, what cemetery I'm looking at? Okay, I'm looking at Hope Cemetery. So you could have a drop down of all your different cemeteries. Many of our clients have several different locations. So whenever you're thinking about user access, maybe you have individuals or employees that have that only work at one cemetery. All of that would be driven down to that user. So depending on what information you wanted to see, we can make that access available.
Perfect.
Great question.
You also have somebody asking, can you show us what a proposal or quote would look like?
Yeah, I want to see. No, I did it. So we only have a minute left. So is it okay potentially for that individual if, like I'm free this afternoon, I'd be happy to jump on. Oh, hey, Mike. I'd be happy to jump on with you if you're free after this, and you and I could connect and I could show you what that looks like.
We'll see if he responds. Yep, he said that would be great. Awesome.
Okay. Well, I see it's that time. I just want to share, there's visitor tools that are tied to the system as well. So that map that we have here can be provided on your website, obviously without the ability to, reserve lots or that sort of thing. But there's also kiosk tools here. So let's say I wanted to find a loved one. This again would look on your website. So this looks pretty plain here, but we could see, okay, well, this is where Margaret is, and we could pull up an interactive map to see exactly where she's at. So again, this is the same map we were just looking at, and we could see where she's at there. So it's just a great tool. I mention all the time, you know, if you want to talk to somebody, great. But if you don't need to talk to somebody and you have the technology there for visitors to find where they need to get, then that's also great. So that's one of the tools. We also have just burial search as well. We have services that you could have on your website to any new services that are happening on that specific day. You could come to your website and see that. You could have a map or walk to grave for the visitors just to make it more convenient. So these are just third-party tools. I mentioned it in the presentation, so just wanted to briefly show you this as well.
Excellent. Well, I don't see any other questions, Joel, and we will connect with Mike after, because he said he's got quite a bit of things he wants to go over. And for everyone else, we also will follow up with you just to get some feedback, because we're always looking to make these presentations better and see what you would like to learn from us. So Joel, I'm going to let you go through any closing remarks and then we'll end it.
No, I just appreciate everybody joining and have a great rest of 2020 and looking forward to hopefully having you on our next webinar. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.